the community spirit, the teamwork, the family that gets created in that marching band creates a sense of belonging. And we know that students are more successful, have better mental health and wellness when they have this sense of being part of a community where they actually belong, where they have, the purpose. And so the three strategic priorities, it's really clear the marching band contributes to all three of those. And so it's a huge enhancement and asset for the university. But for the students themselves, and that this really kind of goes back to the belonging piece, it brings a sense of connection. It brings a sense of community. It brings a sense of purpose, a place where students can, pursue their passions, I think it also offers an opportunity for stress relief. It brings an opportunity where you can lean into being a musician. And let's not underestimate the extent to which the marching band offers leadership opportunities. I have seen students in the marching band, take on these leadership opportunities. It's really, really incredible. And of course, a requisite for any marching band is a great sense of teamwork. And that is translatable, right, to careers, to life in general. So I think for students, there's just countless ways in which the marching band brings them an overall sense of belonging and success.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Marching Roundtable podcast. This is Tim Hinton, your host. I'm the beast of the marching arts, and we are so excited to be having yet another conversation about the wonderful college band at Widener University. With us today is Ian Moyer. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back for another one of these conversations. And our special guest today, Dr. Stacy M. Robertson, who is the president at Widener University. How are you, Dr. Robertson?
I'm wonderful, and I'm really thrilled to be here with you. Thank you so much for asking me to join you.
Absolutely. So, Ian, we're excited to be able to have this conversation. I'll let you do the introductions.
Sure. And thank you, Stacy, for joining us. And this is sort of wrapping up a four-part podcast series about launching the Widener Marching Band. And we obviously started that before you arrived at Widener, but you've been such a huge supporter of the program, and we're certainly grateful to kind of, maybe talk about where we've been, but also sort of where we're going, and maybe most importantly, how the band program is integrated into the university setting and all that. So we're super glad to have you. That's for sure. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's maybe interesting. I've been at Widener this is my 11th fall semester, but I've had actually three presidents in that time. And President Robertson is our current president. And it's interesting, actually, Jim Harris was the president when I first got hired at Widener. And interestingly enough, he really installed my position, and
Right.
My position really didn't exist before Jim Harris requested it. And oddly enough, I actually met with President Harris like on my interview, which was surprising because I met with him in his office, and he met with the other candidates as well. And I obviously wasn't it's not a faculty position at Widener, so it was very unique to sit down with the university president on an interview like that. But he was really integral in starting the pep band, and then he took a position at the University of San Diego, and then Julie Woolman became our next president, and Julie was really instrumental in starting the marching band at Widener, and came to me early in her tenure there and said, "Hey, we want to have a marching band. What do you need?" And I was very, very grateful for the support and so on, and then Stacy came to us in 2022, I believe, and it's been a great collaboration, and I think President Robertson has really been able to kind of ignite a new flame at Widener, and we've just brought in our two largest freshman classes and our largest freshman band classes as well. So it's been fun to kind of be on this journey together with multiple people, and obviously with Stacy as well, for sure.
Amazing. I just have to say that I'm so grateful to both Jim and Julie for laying the foundation upon which we can continue to build. And Jim is a phenomenal human being. I visited a couple of times to the University of San Diego, and he's such a great leader, as is Julie. So I feel so fortunate to have such great predecessors.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Robertson, before we get into the questions we have on hand about the marching band and about how it fits into the university sort of system, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, just a very brief little bio.
Sure. So I started my career actually as a historian. So I'm a US historian, and as I mentioned earlier, and I started my career at Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois. Spent 20 happy years. I call myself the happy historian at Bradley University. Very happy years. Love being a historian. Kind of, you know how there is a fork in the road at some point in our careers. Fork in my road, have the opportunity to go into leadership and took that opportunity, ended up at Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington, where I spent 2.5 wonderful years being the Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities. That's really where my love for marching bands began, frankly. They had a marching band, a good football team. But honestly, that was where I really fell in love with marching bands because they had a terrific band. In fact, that's primarily why I went to the football games and a lot of people, because the marching band was exceptionally good. So we would go to just kind of see the performances. And then I left there to go to the State University of New York, so SUNY system, where I was at Geneseo, which is a little bit south of Rochester. Our sport was ice hockey at Geneseo. That was that kind of the featured sport. So there was not a marching band for ice hockey. So I missed it there. So when I came here in 2022, and I was the provost and vice president for academic affairs there. So when I came here in 2022, I was so delighted to learn that we already had a marching band and I could return to that love that I'd already developed. So that's kind of my general path to being president of Widener.
Well,
Awesome.
that's very cool. And I have to tell you, man, if anybody ever has a tailor-made name for their memoir, The Happy Historian is it. And I got to tell you, I would read that. So when the time comes you're writing them all down, I hope you
I
remember
will do
that.
it. I'm going to do that. I love
That is
that.
that is such a great name. So always been, you just mentioned how you've enjoyed the marching bands. You've always been very supportive of the marching band program at Widener since you became president. So why do you think the marching band program, the band program in general, is important to the university? What does it bring to the students in the community?
So that's such a great question. And I'll approach it from two, like the university impact and the student impact. So for the university, there is no question that it speaks to all three of our strategic priorities. So at Widener, we're a very agile institution, and that's kind of our strategic approach to the crazy world of higher education right now, which is changing every single day. We are all about agility. But we do have three strategic priorities that we developed pretty quickly after I got here. And there should be no surprise to anyone. One is recruitment, another is retention, and the third is belonging. And what I found is that the marching band speaks to all three of those strategic priorities in really direct and clear ways. So students do choose Widener in part because of the marching band. Like that, there's no question that we are more successful at recruiting new students than we would be if we did not have a marching band. As you know, Ian, there is no music major at Widener. And so many of our students come to the institution with a love of music, with a history of performing in marching bands, or at least playing instruments. And they don't, they want to continue that, and there is no music major. So they may be an engineering major, they may be a nursing major, they may be a business administration major, they may be accounting major, history major. And they want to continue that opportunity for performing. And the fact that we have such a wonderful and successful marching band is really an attractive feature. So I feel like those two large classes that we recruited in are in part due to the fact that some of these students want to come and work with you in the marching band. We also know, and there's no question about this, that students who have meaningful engagements outside the classroom are more likely to be successful in the classroom and to graduate in 4 years and to have student success and to be retained. And so we want to retain every single student that we recruit to Widener. So the marching band, by offering those students this wonderful outlet, and we can talk more about what that feels like for those students, it ends up being, a really important retention factor for us. And I'm confident that we retain those students at a higher level than your average student. And then finally, there's, the community spirit, the teamwork, the family that gets created in that marching band creates a sense of belonging. And we know that students are more successful, have better mental health and wellness when they have this sense of being part of a community where they actually belong, where they have, the purpose. And so the three strategic priorities, it's really clear the marching band contributes to all three of those. And so it's a huge enhancement and asset for the university. But for the students themselves, and that this really kind of goes back to the belonging piece, it brings a sense of connection. It brings a sense of community. It brings a sense of purpose, a place where students can, pursue their passions, I think it also offers an opportunity for stress relief. It brings an opportunity where you can lean into being a musician. And let's not underestimate the extent to which the marching band offers leadership opportunities. I have seen students in the marching band, take on these leadership opportunities. It's really, really incredible. And of course, a requisite for any marching band is a great sense of teamwork. And that is translatable, right, to careers, to life in general. So I think for students, there's just countless ways in which the marching band brings them an overall sense of belonging and success.
I would agree with, I don't think you could have answered that question any better in the sense of, I have so many follow-ups to it in the sense of, I definitely agree on the belonging thing. And I think one of the powerful things about the marching band is band camp, and our semester always starts on a Monday, and typically we've been starting about a week or so ahead of time for band camp, and those students move in and they are a part of the band and they get to meet people in their section who are play the same instrument. They get to meet the people who are in their same academic major, and they come to the first day of class already connected on a very, very high level, which is really, really cool. And then I would say to the recruitment and the retention part, it has been as we've sort of evolved out of a pep band into a marching band. I have found people say to me often, "Hey, I was considering another university, but because your university had a marching band, like I came here." And to the retention part of it, it's actually interesting. Our former College of Arts and Sciences dean, David Lehman, who just retired this past spring, he asked me a couple semesters ago to do a retention study. And, our retention every year kind of from from freshman into sophomore year, which is how we typically, you know, analyze retention. It's in the 90 percentile. We were 95, 92, something. And sometimes like there was a couple classes, there's 100% of the band freshmen from their freshman fall to their sophomore fall made it still in the program and still at the university. So I think those three core values are definitely huge for the band program for sure.
I didn't know that data, but I'm not at all surprised, right? And
Yep.
our overall fall to fall retention rate for first year students is a little under 80%. So when you say it's in the 90s, wow, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
and we're not, we're talking about a group of students, right? Like that's incredible.
I love to tell the story of how when I first went to the University of Tennessee as a freshman, way away from home, didn't know a single person, and that getting to make those friends before school started, knowing where everything was, having a family before the first day of classes was just unbelievably important to me personally in my life in setting me up for success. So I talk about that to parents all the time. Your students should be in marching band in college because you immediately have a belonging before
Yes.
anything starts.
Tim, and we know from the data that those first 1, 2, 3 weeks are the most important
Right.
in terms of retention for a student. So by creating that sense of family from day one, and I'll tell you what, Ian, I hear when I'm walking around campus in the week before school is starting, and I hear y'all practicing, and I hear you rehearsing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it brings such a sense of joy to me. And I can't imagine for those students as they're starting to get to know each other, to get to know the routine, like the anxiety and that wellness factor is so much improved because they don't have fear the way that other students have fear when they're arriving on campus and they don't know what to expect. and they don't know if they're going to make friends, and they don't know if they're going to fit in, and they don't know if they're going to succeed academically. There's all these unknowns. You eliminate so many of those so they can go into their classes with a sense of confidence, that sense of confidence and connection, which all the research shows us is absolutely critical to student success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I'm wondering, Dr. Robertson, if there's anything that surprised you. You've had experience with marching bands before. You show up at Widener. Is there anything about the experience of the marching band there that has surprised you?
When I was at Central Washington, we watched the band from afar. We didn't have a personal connection to the band. I think probably the biggest thing for both me and my husband, Steve, is the sense of connection that we have with the individual members of the band, with the band as a whole, right? So we've, of course, had the band over to the house, but it's really when we're at these football games and we happen to sit like right behind the band. So we are literally almost feel like we are a part of the band, right? And so with the drum line is literally the seats right in front of us. And so we hear them chatting. And I don't even know if they know this, but we hear them chatting, right? We hear their inside jokes. We see them sweating in the heat, right? We see the fun, the joy, like all of that stuff. And so in some ways was been a real surprise is how much we and this is unique. Like we don't feel this with all groups on. We would love to, but we just don't have the opportunity. We feel this in a special way with the marching band because literally we are practically there on the field with them. And so both Steve and I, have watched individuals go through the program. In a couple of years, we will see our class of 22 graduate, right? And that's going to be an incredible moment. But we feel this kind of almost like family connection. And that means that their passion, their joy, their spirit of fun gets infused into us. So, we know that when the announcer says something about Wawa and their pizza, right? We know that's like the inside joke of the band. And
Yeah.
they're right.
Yeah, they go crazy. You bet. You bet. Yeah, Wawa, which is a convenience store chain in this area, although it's rapidly expanding
Yeah,
nationwide.
we have it in Florida now.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
they have pizza, and they always sponsor like one of our announcements, and the band just goes crazy for that for sure.
They go nuts. They're like,
Yeah.
they have pizza.
Yeah.
And so it's just like this ongoing kind of inner joke. And so we get all worked up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we know what's coming.
Right. It's funny actually, Stacey, you mentioned like that the band sits right in front of you. And it was actually maybe, I don't know if it was your first year or the second year. I did tell the drummer, I said, hey, just so you know, like the president and like, university donors, university administration, they're like right behind you. So just so you know, and so on. But they love that for sure. So
No, they're always just their humor, their sense of joy is everyone in the box absolutely loves it. And the other thing that I mentioned this with belonging, but it was a surprise to me, and that is the extent to which I really feel like, and I don't even know if the students are conscious of this, but I truly believe that being a part of this band and beyond just being a part of a kind of family and a community, being a part of the marching band brings them a greater sense of wellness than they would have otherwise. And I believe that because the marching band does all its work outside, right? You are outdoors. You are outdoors. I know the literature on the impact of being outdoors, being in nature, and the connection to improved mental health. It is real. So the fact that you are giving these students an opportunity to engage in something that they love and do it outdoors, I would not underestimate, right? That's that impact that has on students. And, yes, sometimes they're suffering because they're in their uniforms and it's hot. But I think more often than not, just that opportunity to be outdoors really, really does contribute to decreased wellness. And I also think, having pride and purpose in your life increases and relationships, right? All three of those increase wellness and increase happiness in our lives. And they get all of those from the marching band.
I would agree with you. I've never really thought about it from that perspective about the outdoor, the nature sort of thing.
Right?
And it is interesting. You're not wrong. Like I always say, the marching band. I always say my classroom is outside. Like, where's your classroom?
Exactly.
It's outside. For the fall, and then obviously for the spring semester, it's a little bit different. But yeah, you're not wrong. Marching band is unique, and football and fall sports too. I mean, I'm not shortchanging our athletic teams either, but it starts when it's usually very hot out, like, and it ends when it's usually pretty cold out, and late August and early mid-November are two drastically different things, kind of anywhere you live in the country, and so on. So, and there's, sometimes it rains, sometimes, it's challenging, but it is, you're not wrong. That's a really fascinating observation that, just the outdoor nature of it is quite unique in that sense.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, they are resilient in those moments where the weather isn't comfortable, whether that's the heat or I remember several times where they're in their rain gear and they're,
Yes. Yes.
their instruments and it's their resilience is improved as a result of their participation.
Sure. For sure. Can you maybe talk a little bit about, the sense of community that you and we are trying to foster at Widener? And obviously there's a lot of players in that. And obviously the Widener athletic teams, and we have a pep band that goes in the spring and performs our women's and basketball games and so on. We've got cheerleaders, we've got a Pride Pack dance team, we've got a whole host of Division III athletics and so on. Like, what talk, and I'll say a shout out to President Robertson. She goes and her husband go to a lot of athletic events and a lot of band events, and so they're seen at numerous places all the time, every week in a lot of ways. And what is the sense of community that we're striving for, and how do you see that play out with those folks?
Ian, it is so true that it seems like a truism almost that's the spirit of pride and community that almost seems to be infused into that combination of the athletics, the marching band, the pep band, the cheerleaders, the Pride Pack, the keeping it trill, right? That all of that brings such a sense of energy and pride in ourselves and in the institution, right? And I see it every time I'm at any game where anyone is performing, right? And especially if it's the combination. And by the way, the band is also central to our recruitment events, literally, right?
Sure,
At
sure, you
our
bet.
accepted student days, the energy that the band brings to those, like, it's incredible. And people often tell me, we have a commercial where the band is also partly in that commercial too, right?
Yep.
Like
Oh, yeah.
the energy and excitement that music that it just almost reverberates physically throughout your body, right? When you are in a room, especially when we're indoors, like
Yeah.
we are for accepted student days, you feel that band, you feel that energy, and everyone's spirits are lifted, right? It's just this incredible thing. And I think for us at Widener, honestly, my dream is that Widener is nationally recognized for being a university that creates a community of belonging in ways that others don't. And I think we are very intentional, right? We are very strategic. We don't just expect belonging to happen. We engage in particular activities, right? And events and all kinds of things that we know will lead to improve and increase belonging. And athletics and the band are an incredible part of that. When I started and you will remember this, when we started a couple of years ago, attendance, particularly at the winter sports, indoor winter sports,
Right.
was not where I needed it to be or where we wanted it to be, right? Like sometimes I felt like it was me and Steve and all the parents were
Sure. You bet.
Right?
Yep,
Like
yep.
we were there, and parents of the other team, of our opposing team, were
Yeah.
sometimes outnumbered us. So I think that together the community has really worked. And I think the fact that we've grown, Ian, right? Like we're a bigger institution. We have more students on campus. We have more students who live on campus. We have more students who are looking for things to do in the evenings and on weekends that bring them joy, right? And so now we find there are more students attending all athletic events, right? And I think having the band there brings that energy level up, right? We can point to, I was just last night, y'all, at the women's volleyball game. Steve and I were at the women's volleyball game last night. And as I look, look, volleyball is a huge sport on the West Coast. It's not like our main sport here, right? On the East Coast. But the number of students who were in attendance, faculty, staff, alumni, volleyball fans, parents, I mean, other athletic teams, the entire baseball team was at the women's volleyball game. I am not kidding you. They managed in one group of the stands to do the wave, right? Like they, which was comical, but they brought that energy, right? And that kind of sense of pride in the institution and care for one another. And the fact that I went around and talked to some of the students, Ian, and Tim, at this game, just to see like, hey, why are you here? Or do you know someone on the volleyball team? Or do you know, like, what did you play volleyball? Like, why? What's the reason? And the groups of students I talked to were like, no, we just want to be a part of stuff happening at Widener. And this seemed like, and I was like, wow. And several of them were first year groups, right? I had met them because we have all the first year students over to the house. I'd met several of these groups. In fact, one I knew pretty well because I'd spent a lot of time with them at the house. And I couldn't believe it when I saw them at the game. I go, how are you even, like, why are you at a volleyball game? They're like, we just want to be here with the community. And I was overwhelmed by that, to be honest with you, because I had not seen that before. And Ian, you and I both witnessed the transformation of our Schwartz Center, where our basketball teams play, from 2 years ago to our teams being in the NCAA, tournament. And it was full.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was full and it was loud, right? And it was unbelievable, the energy, and it brings a sense of pride. The other thing I will say is that I've never seen a university in my experience, and this is my fourth, that has so much spirit, like institutional spirit. I'm often at a university and I'll see a student walking around with their Harvard t-shirt or they're like some other, and I'm like, why are you wearing a Harvard? Like, do you know what I mean? And you don't see that at Widener, right? I
Yeah,
have never
I would agree with
seen
that. Yep.
so much Widener gear.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I
It's
think too,
crazy.
you see all the athletes walk around like Widener football. They have their shirts on. Widener lacrosse, Widener field hockey. Same thing with the band members and so on. And yeah,
Yes,
you don't have to be an athlete either. There's a lot of people who are I think super proud and super spirited about it for sure. And I
right?
think you're not wrong about the indoor events, like the impact that when a pep band and like the Pride Pack dance team and the cheerleaders are at an admitted student day, it's electric. And it's the same thing at a basketball game, whether it's
Right?
women's or men's and so on. So it's definitely unique in that sense for sure. And you're not wrong. We saw throughout the basketball season last year, attendance just keep going up and up and up and up and up. And it was awesome for sure.
It was really awesome. It just gives you such a feeling of community, right? And in the end, of course, everyone loves to win, but what I love is how much generosity and kind of care that we also offer when we don't win,
Right.
right? Like
Mhm.
there's that there was a women's volleyball game last week. We won the first two games. We lost the second two games, and we were close in the third. We were about to win. We ended up losing. We lost the fourth game. We go into the fifth game, only 15 points. We end up losing that fifth game. Now, you would think that those young women would be like heads down, shoulders drooping. And you know what? They were not. They were laughing. They were chatting with the other team. They knew they had lessons that they had learned from this loss about letting down and resilience. But they did it just, and I think the spirit of the people in the room helped with that.
Sure. I can relate to that from a band standpoint. When I first got to Widener, they told me, "Hey, if we win the game, we'll play the fights, play the fight song after the game, and the football team will come over and so on." And that's what we did for a little while. When we won, we would play the fight
Yeah.
song. And then at some point I was like, "You know what? We're playing the fight song every time because the Pearl Pack
Oh,
stuck around, the cheerleaders were there, and it's like win, lose or draw, we're still Widener and we're here
I love that.
and so on." So
I
yeah, I can
love that.
certainly relate to that for sure.
Amazing. Love that.
Well, these are wonderful stories, and they really prove that you guys are doing a lot of things right and you're on the right track for sure. And I think you already knew that, but it's so lovely to sit here and listen to this conversation and hear you talk about these
Oh,
really clear examples of how it's working. Um, um, President Robertson, I think you've made this point already really clear, but I'm going to ask you one more time. What would you say to a university president out here who's wondering, oh, should I start a marching band? Will it make a difference? What would you say?
right. Tim, I think these days, and so I'm going to get real with you, right? Like any addition that costs, any president is going to be asking themselves, what are the benefits to the institution? Now, are they worth the cost? Because so many institutions these days are really struggling to make ends meet. Some are struggling even about their financial viability for the future. And the market is more competitive. The nation is asking relevant questions, right? About the purpose of higher education and the benefit of higher education. And I think we are getting better at answering those questions. But for any university president who's thinking, should I start a marching band? They're going to be saying, what is the benefit to the university going to be? And I would go back and, like you said, Tim, go back to that first question. For us, it would have been a no-brainer. And I give Jim Harris credit and Julie Wallman credit for seeing that. The band brings it actually brings revenue. And I want to emphasize this, right? It brings revenue to the institution. It brings revenue by recruiting students who would not otherwise come to Widener, that we would lose to another institution. It brings revenue by keeping students and retaining students and helping them to graduate in 4 years. That's also revenue. So I'm just being like, just a revenue point of view, just talking about revenue. For recruitment and retention, there is no question that the benefits outweigh the costs, right, to the institution. But I think more important than those questions are everything we have just discussed. The sense of belonging, the sense of care, the wellness, the joy, the spirit that go well beyond the 110 or 115 students who are actually a part of the marching band, not to mention when we include, the pride pack and the cheerleaders and everyone else who's part of that kind of spirit group. It goes so beyond that. The feeling that a parent has when they walk into admitted student day and they hear that band and they feel that excitement, right? That is priceless because it gives them a real introduction to what it's like to be here. And I think the thing that I have the most pride in is, I talk to a family after their student has been here for a little while and they say, you know what, Stacy, I will tell you what, I saw your commercial and I saw the energy, and our commercial is just all energy, right? And they say, you know what? It's actually real. Like that is truly what it is like to be at Widener. And so that's without the band, without all our like I don't think you can't replicate that spirit. You can't. And music, right? Music brings such joy and energy to people, particularly in dance, particularly in the form of a marching band. So, I think for any institution, the benefits of the marching band are not only practical, but they're also almost spiritual, right? And they contribute to the things that we need to do to ensure that our community is successful.
Wow, fantastic. That's just incredible. And you guys are both doing such wonderful work. How fortunate all the students in the community are to have you guys there doing the work you're doing. And President Robertson, thank you for taking time to talk with us. You are super impressive. And I love the job that you're doing and what you're bringing. And that sense of belonging in community is super important. And
Oh,
I look forward to reading The Happy Historian one day.
Tim,
I'm gonna watch for it. So Ian and President Robertson, thank you so much for talking with me.
thank you, Tim. It was a joy.
Marching Arts Education is the home of the Marching Roundtable podcast. We give you access to the top marching arts professionals through live webinars, podcasts, videos, interviews, and online coursework. With over 1,000 podcasts and hundreds of webinars and videos, there are hours of great professional development for you and your staff. Sign up for a membership to Marching Arts Education to get complete access to all webinars, videos, and podcasts, plus discounts on coursework. Many directors are using professional development funds through their school or boosters to make these resources available to their staff. Imagine what you could do with so many great new ideas from the top professionals in our activity. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter to find out about the latest podcasts, webinars, and new content. Find all of this and sign up at marchingartseducation.com.